I'm sure many of us know someone, if not you, who's felt uncomfortable talking about religion and money or just have feelings of shame or guilt about it. Welcome to Yahweh's Money, a podcast where we discuss the crossroads or intersections of religion and money. We're going to go deep into topics like tithing and saving and debt and so much more from the religious view. I'm your host, Shay Cook, CEO and founder, Crusaders for Change, LLC, and our co-host is Vanessa McNally, one of our financial counselor, coach, educators. Let's talk about God and money. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Yahweh's Money, the crossroads of religion and money. This episode, we're going to talk about family fears and finances. I'm your host, Shay Cook. We have Vanessa McNally as well in the house as our co-host. And somebody I haven't seen in over a decade, but follow them on social and love her even from afar. Robin Berenstain is in Hawaii. We worked together at Walter Reed back in the day, maybe 2008, 9 to 2011. So I'm super excited to have her here today. Robin, if you can give a quick introduction, we'll get into the episode.
Hi, you can't see me, but I'm an old lady. Been working with children and families for pushing 5 decades now,
Wow.
and currently work for the Marines, helping young parents be good parents.
Nice. Yeah, you were doing that back in the Army days
I
too.
was.
So, well, thank you for your service to our service members and their families. We really appreciate that. I know you do amazing work. I have to tell everybody back in those days when was in my position, and even as a director of the Army Community Service, Robin was, I don't know if she remembers, she helped me get through a panic attack one time and taught me how to breathe. And
I
I had
do
never,
remember.
wow, and that was amazing. So that set me up for many years of helping me get through those panic attacks. Hopefully in another episode we can talk about how I got through those, but I'm just really, really grateful to her to sit down with me. I'll never forget, in the reception area, and just tell me how to breathe deeply. So I'm still grateful. I'm so grateful to you for that and all the work you do for our country.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So again, family fears and finances. In Proverbs 11:29, it states, "Those who bring trouble to their families inherit the wind. The fool will be a servant to the wise." How did or can family dynamics influence feelings and beliefs and affect your decisions around money? Rob?
I have to begin by saying I grew up in a very socially liberal but fiscally conservative family. And we were very lucky in that, we were in the middle class. So I remember not having everything I wanted, but always having everything I needed.
Mm.
So, lucky here. I never worried about where my next meal would come from, or whether I'd have a winter coat or boots when I needed them. We had those things. We didn't always have stuff we wanted, and
Mm.
and I'm not sure that's in any way a bad thing. I
Yeah.
I think it's really good to plan ahead about
Mhm.
things like that. What I see in my families is that many of them have grown up with the sense that things that people buy for you or things that you have give you value as a person and show that the person loved you. So, my husband bought me this necklace. That means he loves me. And I think that's a really scary way to feel about
Mm.
money and finances, because I don't think that's a show of love. I think that's a show of money. and
Right.
they don't necessarily go together. Lots of
Mhm.
really poor people have a whole lot of love, and lots of really rich people have none.
Mm.
So when I you sent me that question and I heard it, that was the very first thing I thought, was how people put a love value, a caring value on money, which I don't think it has.
No, and that's a really good point. I think a lot of men especially do that. They buy your love. Like my father,
Yeah.
it was like gifts, 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 no time, but gifts. And I wish that they could understand that, when you're receiving that, you don't see that as love yourself. You see that as, okay,
Mm.
well, I'll give them another chance, that type of situation. But no, I totally agree with you.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. My daughter says that about her daddy, and my dad was just working, so I don't know. Remember him really buying us a lot of gifts. Maybe around Christmas, we would get so many gifts, and my mom would really buy it. But obviously,
Right.
he was funding it because he was the breadwinner. But we would get so many gifts, and I'd see my brother carrying on that tradition that I don't necessarily agree with, because these kids who don't they're not going to remember all of that, and there's many different reasons why that's wrong or right. But I noticed men do that as well.
Hmm.
And my daughter says, oh well, that's just daddy's love language. I'm like, he could be doing something else.
It-
So
and it's not one of the
mhm.
better love languages.
Yeah,
That's so.
exactly. Yeah. And so, the way we save, how we spend, our perception of debt, our view of credit, fear of not having enough, believing money is the root of all evil, we've talked about several times in many episodes, and avoiding conversations about money may come as a result or examples we observed growing up. We've already kind of talked about that, but can you relate?
Absolutely. I personally believe power is the root of all evil, not
Mm,
money.
exactly.
But I think money often gets tied to that.
Yep.
So I get that part. I was very careful in raising my own daughter, who's now a college professor. Uh,
Oh,
it's pretty cool. A tenured
yes.
college professor.
Nice.
Yeah, that she would struggle a little bit with money. I mean, not again, always food on the table, always had a winter coat, all of those things. But no, you didn't get everything you wanted. And
Mhm.
when we would go on a family trip, uh, I always set this precedent of you could pick one special thing as a memento of the trip, and it couldn't cost more than X
Mhm,
dollars. And
mhm.
and it was a reasonable sum. I mean, when she was little, it was $15. I think it went up a little as she got older, but it was one thing. And if you bought your one thing in the first day of the trip, that was it for the trip. And I did that very deliberately, both because for some years I was a single parent and there wasn't a lot of money, but also because I think it's really important to give kids the message that you don't need everything that you covet. And life will continue, and you have what you need, and sharing with others, and all of those other things that are part of my values as a person. So those were things that mattered to me when I was raising a child, and I struggle very much to share that with my Marine families, who
Mm.
typically come from a very different background than I did, and feel real differently about money.
Yeah.
I think you and my mother had very similar, looks at things. Yeah, yeah, and
I'm so
and that's
glad.
something I always appreciated about my mom was she taught me that it's okay to struggle and it's okay to not have everything you want. That's a good thing because when things are bad, you know how to get by and you know how to get through them. And I've talked
Mm.
about that before about going through divorce and not having anything at that moment. But, during those times, I was able to live well on a little because she taught me those things. Now, if it would have been my
Mhm.
father, whole different story. But I think that's something that a lot of, people in younger generations lack these days. They're so used to getting what they want when they want it. They don't know what it's like to save for it. They don't know what it's like to, want something for a very long time and then finally like, oh my goodness, I can finally afford this. But I think they're really missing that. And it's all about today, right now. I have to have this. My kids have to have XYZ or they won't be accepted. I think that's a huge problem that we have in the younger generations right now.
And sometimes along with my kids have to have so
Right.
they'll be accepted is my kids have to have so they know I love them.
Mm, mhm.
And I see that as really
For sure.
problematic.
I do too. And I did the same thing and still do. My daughter's 21 and she's a junior in college, and
Hey.
we did the same thing when we went on vacations. One gift, an amount was set, and if you bought it the first day, that's it,
Right. You
and
have your thing.
exactly. And then going back to, the children, parents feeling like they have to give their children, something to be accepted in this world or show them love. I will never forget my daughter going to church one time, and she's like, everybody's got an iPhone 7, 8, whatever it was. She still had my 3 because I gave her my 3. because I never bought her a new phone until she could afford to buy at least half of it on her own. And so she was so embarrassed by that. I'm like, well, if you want a phone, you have to work for it. I mean, like, I'm not gonna go buy you a brand new iPhone 7 when I had an old 3 that still works. That you're, and that's the kind of logic you're gonna get my hand me downs because you needed a phone because you were in karate. Long story, but still, I just don't believe in buying these kids new phones and new this and new that. Even in 21 years old, she's like, well, my roommate said that their parents would just buy them an iPad. Why are you, she didn't say why, but I think
Right.
she meant, why are you
Right.
making me pay half or more for this? Well, because you need to work for this item. It's not going to be given to you because in life, nothing's given to you for free, at least not in my family. So those values really, I see those working and for the good of her growing up, because now, there's other stories that I see her roommates going through struggles because their parents gave them everything. Where Alana is now like, oh, I understand why you did this. And she's looking at them like, oh, well, you're this way because I'm like, don't judge them. You just had a different upbringing, different foundation and family, so yeah, that's wow. Yeah. And even still, even in the scripture, 1 Timothy 6:10 says, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. We hear that all the time, right? And people take that out of context too many times. And
Mm-hmm.
some people craving money have wandered from true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows. And even going into Psalm 37:21, it says, the wicked borrow and never repay, but the godly are generous givers. And then we had a whole episode on giving, but I think that goes along with any kind of fear you have around the finances. Like, if I give to others, what am I going to have? Or, that kind of selfishness that we see. What do you think about that, Robin?
I was just raised to share with
Mm,
others what I have, and I remember my daughter must have been 7 or 8, and her stepdad worked for the government, and they do that United Way thing,
mm-hmm.
and so he brought home the book of charities that you could give money to, and I handed it to my daughter and said, "Here, pick 3."
Yes.
And I said, I like to pick one that's sort of immediate needs of people, and one that's more, like housing in the future, and maybe a third one that's about getting your mental health together. Pick 3 you like, and then present them to us as to why you want them. Because we had decided we would give to United Way, and there are thousands of great charities, so it's not like you have to pick your favorite one. But she went through and she presented her reasons to us why she wanted them, and that is who we gave money to that year. And I have to say, she and I both donate a lot of money to various groups and causes, and it makes me proud. And as we speak, there's a brown bag filled with food that I later need to take out to my condo mailbox, because today is the day that mail carriers across the country collect food to give to the local food
Oh, wow. Nice.
bank. It's too early to put it out, so it's
Yeah.
just sitting over by the door for later. And to me, that's important. I remember telling a friend that I had given the big original $1,200 check we got from the government. I don't remember what it was called. Um, I gave mine to the Hawaii Food Bank. You
Oh,
know,
stimulus. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Hawaii has always has a bunch of people living on the edge,
Mm-hmm.
and because the tourist industry closed down here, there were a
Mm-hmm.
lot more people living on the edge. And I was teleworking. I was still being paid. I have everything I need, and so I just donated it to the food bank. And a colleague looked at me and said, I said, I have enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not wealthy, but
Mm-hmm.
let me take that back. In terms of most of the universe, I am a
Mm-hmm.
very wealthy woman. I
Mm-hmm.
have a home which is safe and lovely.
Mm-hmm.
I have a car to drive. I have clothing to wear. There is always food in my refrigerator. I have
Yep.
meaningful work. I am a
Mm-hmm.
very wealthy woman.
Yeah. Amen. We are.
Would Donald Trump think I'm a wealthy woman? He would not, and I don't care. you know, but you understand, it's like I have everything I need, and
Mm.
therefore I should share with
Yeah.
others. And I don't know if my parents were ever that clear with me. I was definitely that clear with my daughter.
That's something really good to recognize. I think so many of us, especially people who've never lived outside the continental US, they have no idea what the rest
Yeah,
of the world is like. And what, we
yeah,
take for granted is something that someone else would love to have once in their lifetime. So I think it's really good to recognize that and to recognize that, yes, compared to a lot of people, we are wealthy. And then teaching younger generation, the gift of giving. That's something huge too, because I think that's something when you teach that to someone and you see them light up when that happens, it's such an amazing thing. I know I have a niece who is 14 now, and every year, instead of buying gifts for each other, we go to the store and we buy gifts for people who are in elderly care homes. And, that's just kind of our thing. And we look forward to it. And it's just so much fun. And it's way more fun than just taking her to, Starbucks to get something or to go get her nails done or whatever.
right.
But it's something that we have and we bond over every year. So, yeah, being able to share that with somebody, it's the best feeling in the world. Yeah.
My daughter and I do that at Christmas. We give donations to groups, and we
Yep.
let each other know who we've given
Exactly.
them to.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, I feel like I brought up my child same way as Robin because I too, when I worked for the government, used to contribute to the
Mm-hmm.
CFC Combined
Yep.
Federal
Yeah,
Yep.
that thing.
campaign.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we sat down one time and looked at the book as well and decided on some charities, my daughter and I, from cancer, because we have a lot of cancer in our family, unfortunately, to the library that we support and others that over the years that we contributed to. So that too, we did that. And I see her. That really was a great thing to do with her. And because she's, again, part of that
Exactly.
foundation. So
right.
that's awesome. Well, in Isaiah 54:4, it says, "Fear not, you will no longer live in shame. Don't be afraid. There is no more disgrace for you. You will no longer remember the shame of your youth and the sorrows of widowhood." So, how do the feelings of shame, guilt, and fear, which we talk a lot about on this show, we
Mm.
experience in our childhood carry into our finances as adults? So, either personally or with your clients, how have you seen the shame and guilt, around finances carry into adults?
The one I see most often with my clients is that they grew up with nothing, and they feel like they have to have things now.
Mm,
And no one ever showed them how to manage money, and so some of them have thousands and thousands of dollars of credit card debt,
mhm,
which I'm sure you've talked about on the show and how terrible it is to do that. And the other one they do that makes me crazy is they pay into taxes, and then they get this huge amount back at the end of the year. Like they'll get $12,000 back, and then maybe they'll put a little bit in the bank, but they pay off debt, and then they buy a bunch of stuff they don't need, and I go, because I try to make it so I owe very little or I get back very
Exactly.
little. It's like that's my goal, because then I'm managing the money the whole time. And I will
Mm,
say that to families, and they go, "No, no, we can't do that."
mm,
And so I don't know how much of that is shame and how much of that is ignorance,
mhm,
but they like it. They like getting that big hunk of money back, and to me, it's like the worst of both worlds. You've not
mhm,
managed your money all year long, and then you're getting this boatload of money back, and you're. I had a family back when I was at Walter Reed who, every time I visited them, would talk about how much they were in debt and who they had borrowed money this from this month, and how hard it was and how scary it was. And they got $8,000 back on their taxes, and this is 12 years ago, so that was a lot of money. And they paid off all the people they borrowed money from, which was about half of that, and then they bought a bunch of stuff. They bought a new bedroom set. And I said to her, I went, "Huh, I think I might have like paid ahead on the car payment some." And she said, "Well, no, we're all caught up now. Everything's fine." It's like, but it was never fine, because you were always borrowing money from other
mhm,
people. And she hated borrowing money from people, but you couldn't figure out another way to do it. And I don't know where you put that on but it makes me a little crazy because
It makes us crazy too as financial counselors.
I mean, the only debt I have is the mortgage on the condo I'm sitting in. And whatever I've charged on the credit card bill, which I will pay when the bill comes. I have never had a car loan.
Oh, wow. Impressive.
Because, well, it's the way I was raised. My dad taught us. So I have paid money to myself as a car loan every month until I had enough for a car, and then I bought a new car.
That's exactly what I do too.
And I have a 2013.
Yeah.
I have a 2013 Prius sitting in my driveway that I still think of as my new car. But it's like, I did buy it new. It's not new anymore.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of clients who are like that, that really grew up with nothing. And to them, being successful means having things. And that's all they know is, the more stuff you have, the more successful you are. People can see that you have that nice car. I mean, I've worked with so many people who, they may live in a dump, but if they have a brand new nice car, they have made it in this world. And it's so hard to see because you think about, okay, well, if you would have just juggled things a little differently, you could have a nice home, a decent car, food on the table, all your bills paid, happy family, all that good stuff that could happen. But just because you grew up in that environment where having everything meant you made it has just changed everything. And it's so hard to break free from that.
Well, I mean, part of it is simply values. It's like what you value as a person, what you're taught as a child, and I have not figured out how to help people do that. Well, I've been working on it for 50 years, but I haven't quite figured that one out yet. So I don't know what to say. But
I remember
it distresses me a lot.
Yeah, I remember that when I was at Fort Riley, a friend of mine, his little brother, was newly married and newly stationed at Fort Riley. And I walked into their new apartment and there was nothing. There was an air mattress with no sheets, absolutely nothing else in that apartment. And I'm like, oh, Lord, what am I going to do? I've got to fix this, So I call everyone I know. We get some money together. We get enough for like pots and pans and silverware and a set of sheets and just the basics so you can live comfortably. And I remember going in with all these things. And, the wife just started crying. They didn't know what to do because they had no money. Well, the next time I walk in there, they had a brand new flat screen television. And I was like, okay,
oh my God,
something is off. Like they don't understand what your needs are versus your wants. And it's something that they grew up with, and you can't change that overnight.
Wow, amazing conversation. I'm loving it. It's taking me back to a lot of things I did as a young adult when I was in Germany, newly married, and thinking about buying TVs versus buying other things. It was more important at that time.
So easy
and now
for
I'm thinking
you at
like,
that point, though.
yeah, they really did. And then you have the Star credit card. I think that's what it was called with the PXD
Star card. Yep.
Star card. Yep, and use that. Oh man, the joys of living as a military spouse or military. But it doesn't even matter if you're military or not. We all have those temptations, and credit cards is huge, and it's just too much debt out there these days. And wow, we may feel obligated to give or lend money to our children, parents, and relatives, and cause a financial burden on all of us. So that takes, now we were talking about giving to ourselves and taking care of ourselves, but what if you have now like we were talking about earlier, giving to your children or you have your parents or your relatives, and just trying to keep up with whoever, but also trying to buy that love, as we were talking about with your relatives. That can become a burden, and then there might be some fear around that. So, Robin, yeah.
I mean, one of the families I really enjoyed working with, they've PCS, so they're elsewhere now, but she's a single mom. She had 2 kids, and she was the most financially stable person in her family. And so she was always loaning money to her mom, to her brother, to her sister. And I once said to her, it would be okay if you said the bank of, Susie, not her name, is closed now. And she kind of looked at me and she said, but they're my family. And I said, I know, and you love them, and but you need to be able to feed and take care of
Mhm.
your kids. That needs to be your first priority. And she did get so she could say, like her mom called and said, I need $1,000, and she said, I don't have $1,000. So she got so she could sort of limit that. But and like I understand about family. I'd stand in front of a moving train for my daughter if I had to. But at the same time, we need to set some boundaries around
Amen.
all of
Yeah.
that, and it's hard to do, especially if you grew up
Right.
without boundaries. It's
Mhm.
hard to set them, and people make you feel like if you loved
Mhm.
me, you'd give me that
Mhm.
$1,000.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And love and money are not
Yeah.
necessarily related. That's
Yeah.
Mhm.
And culturally, too, a lot of cultures, you're expected to take care of the rest of the
yeah.
family. And I think a lot of times, like if you have somebody that's immigrated to the US, the family automatically thinks, okay, the bank of so and so is open now because they're making more money. But it also takes more money to get things going and to have a car and a house and all that here too. And I think people don't see that. And they think I have to take care of everyone else before me. And that's hard to see and watch too, because they have such guilt or love for their family, however you want to look at it. And it's so hard to watch that because it's truly coming from a good place, but they just don't know how to say no.
Yeah, and then you feel like, 'cause I'm putting myself in this position because I've been here and I've closed the Bank of Shay, and I actually said that the Bank of Shay is closed like 5, 10 years ago. I had to because I didn't have any boundaries with my family. I
Hmm.
felt obligated because I am the oldest child. I'm the band-aid in the family. I'm the most responsible, and I have progressively made more money, my husband and I, than anybody in the family. And so I felt obligated that I had to give my family money. But then the boundaries were not honored because I didn't set them first of all, and so I just felt, wow, I think I might get emotional in this
Hmm.
period, but it was hard because you want to be able to take care
Of
of your
course.
family. And so eventually you have to say no, and it's hard in the
Hmm.
beginning, first couple 10 times. It's like no, no, okay,
Hmm.
okay, I'll do it this last time no, okay, I'll do it. No, and then finally like, no, I can't do this anymore. I have my own family. I have to take care of myself. I have a child, I have a husband, I have a dog, whatever it is. I can't do this anymore. It's becoming a quite almost abusive.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
it's traumatic that you're thinking I'm supposed to take care of that family unit, this family unit. I
Right.
have my own family unit. So yeah, the boundaries had to come in place. And but then that comes from, as I was going to talk next, is how can we heal from past family trauma and shame? And if you don't have those boundaries, that trauma can really seep over into your adult life. And there was a lot of trauma and shame that came with all of that. And even in Proverbs 17:9, it says, love prospers when a fault is forgiven, but dwelling on it separates close friends. And so we don't want to continue to dwell on it, but sometimes you need it at top of your mind so there's a
Hmm.
boundary for a reason.
Hmm.
you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So Robin, how do we heal from past family trauma and shame around that, family financial issues?
When you ask a child and family therapist how you heal from trauma, they're going to tell you to go into therapy.
Yes,
A-
exactly.
and and that just feels like the snotty quick answer, but
No, no,
the
yeah.
reality
Hmm.
is trauma often requires a caring person from the outside to help you with it. And there are all kinds of ways to do that. I mean, I know people
Hmm.
who go to AA
Yep.
for
Hmm.
that. I know people who go
Hmm.
to NA for that. There's lots of ways to take care of that, but it is rarely possible to heal from trauma completely on your own, sitting on
Hmm.
your couch at home. That doesn't work. Or, more often what happens is you sit in front of your computer playing computer games and pretending that is healing from trauma. It
Hmm.
is not. Uh, So you have to reach out for help outside of yourself and probably outside of your
Yeah.
family.
It's always good to have that outside person. I have a therapist that I talk to
Yeah.
every 2 weeks just to check in with. And I swear that is the best decision I have ever made in my whole life because it's so nice to sit down with somebody and for them to say, you're not crazy. This is not normal. And, you can't control those outcomes or those situations. The only thing you can control is the way you react and the way you feel. So it's so nice to have someone to kind of work through all those things with. And I don't know, you just kind of come out of there and you're like, okay, all right, I feel better about life and about myself. And what is being asked of me is not normal and it's not okay. But yeah, and I think sometimes too, it's who we surround ourselves with as well. Like if we surround ourselves with people who are really good at saying no to things, like giving to family, or people who are just better at saving and they don't go out to lunch every day and they don't, have a super expensive car they can't afford. If we surround ourselves with people like that, we're going to be more like them too.
I have to say, for the people I work with, I'm that person. But
You are, Robin, and we are the people.
Yep.
We are that person for our clients.
but I also work with a bunch of other
Mhm.
therapists, and so there are people. I mean, it's a great thing about working with a bunch of therapists. The people whose office you can walk into and throw yourself in
Mm.
their chair and go,
Yep. Yep.
and and have them talk you down from
Mhm.
whatever ledge you're on
Mhm.
that day. But I live in a very nice condo in Hawaii. I have a view of
Mm.
Kaneohe Bay, and
Oh wow.
it is wonderful. And people look at me and how could you afford that? And the answer to that is I took my lunch to work
Exactly.
every day for 40 years. I, I did not.
Mhm.
If you don't spend
Mhm.
$10 a day on lunch, you save a lot more
Mhm.
money.
Oh yes.
And I'm way too
Yep.
frugal to buy lunch every day, and it's a lot healthier if you bring it from home. And then when you're 65, you get to buy an
Right.
awesome condo in Hawaii, or
Yeah.
whatever would make you happy. Not necessarily
It's
that,
so
but
true, though.
I would
It's
love
so,
that.
so true. Because people make fun of me all the time because I'm the girl who, when I go somewhere, and let's say I'm working, TDY, so at a different location, I'm the girl who makes a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at the breakfast, station. And I take it to lunch every day because
right,
that way the extra money I'm getting goes in my pocket and I can use it for a trip or something else. But it's so true. Those little
right.
things that you can do, and you don't see that much of an impact daily, but when you look at that over the course of, a month, and then, a quarter, and then a year, it is huge and makes such a big difference.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
That is so true. And I want to go back to the therapy part of it. That first answer was a perfect answer. I've been off and on in therapy since I was 19. I'm 43 now. I'm all for therapists to the point my daughter knows, like, yeah, I think it's time for you to go back to therapy. She'll tell me that. But she's in therapy herself. So it's no
Hmm.
stigma around therapy. I'm all for therapy and other people. Starting with Walter Reed and being around the likes of Robin, and therapist, social worker type. I love that. And I went over to Coast Guard for 7 years and worked with nothing but social workers and therapists and mental health providers. And I would go into their
Yep.
offices many times just to get help for myself or clients or whatever. So I believe in therapy. I mean, I have 2 degrees in psychology. I love the study of human behavior. So, I mean, I am all for that. And I think that is the right answer for many people. And outside of your family,
Hmm.
I even tell my family members that are very religious, outside
Yes.
of your pastor or your reverend or your priest or whoever, because I just feel like even them, they get to know you over a certain amount of time, and then
Hmm.
they're
Hmm.
biased, and so you need unbiased opinions and support to get through whatever the trauma is, and we deal with money trauma a lot. So we are trained to help them. I mean, to help people get through that money trauma going back to childhood or a relationship in their adulthood that's really traumatized them. And just, yeah, even according to the trauma of money.com, the inability to identify past traumas and recognize how they influence us will prevent us from resolving our money issues. And I see that a lot. I mean, I'm sure we
Hmm.
see that. And I always tell people when I worked in family services that money is intertwined through I mean, I'm from dealing with sexual assaults and domestic violence and child and family advocacy program and transition and relocation and transition. I mean, the list went on. Money
Hmm.
was involved in almost
Exactly.
all of that. So you'll definitely see, like, oh, well, you might need some help because you're dealing with a past trauma sexually or physically. We need to send you to that person. Or, you're on this other side and you might have had some childhood stuff. Let's send you to this. So, there's so many professionals out there to help, but money is
Hmm.
is something that's interwoven in all of that. Robin, I'm sure you've seen that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we soothe ourselves with money. We soothe others with our money. In the short term, that's great, but it doesn't solve the trauma. It just tamps it down so that it's more
Mm,
firmly impacted in your life. And there, lots of times people have a lot of reasons for not getting therapy, but one of the
mhm.
reasons is it's expensive. But
Yeah,
most communities have some kind of community mental health, which isn't expensive, and it's
exactly.
definitely worth doing. And if you're in the military, it's free. So
Exactly. And there's many corporations and for-profits out there
Mhm.
that are providing in some
Mhm.
kind of EAP
Mhm.
form, employee assistance program or something, even if it's 30 minutes, gets you there. And like you said, there's so many community programs and community partnerships out there to help
Exactly.
people that if they
Yeah.
can't afford it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's definitely
Yeah.
worth looking
I know
into.
back in the
But
day when
Hmm.
we were first, me and my ex husband were starting to look at therapy, we were looking at the Give an Hour. And that is an amazing
Mm.
program because you can get an hour of, therapy for free. You just have to volunteer for an hour somewhere else because we all have our strengths and we
Oh,
all,
nice.
have an area we can help in. So yeah, there's so many places out there where yeah, you can get what you need and then give somebody else what they need at the same time.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation on family fears and finances. Robin, any final thoughts?
I just ask questions, get help if you need it. That
That's good.
Definitely. Yeah, Robin, it was so nice to meet you and have this conversation. And so
you
nice to
as
talk
well.
about the stigma of getting help because it shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And it is, but it shouldn't be there at all.
It's okay to not be
Exactly.
okay. It's okay to ask for help. Exactly. Awesome, ladies. Well, thank you for your time. In our upcoming episodes, we'll be talking about discipline to deal with debt and goals to get going. You can tune into current and future episodes of Yahweh's Money wherever podcasts are found, including Apple, Google, and Spotify. Please email us at Yahweh at Crusaders4Change.org if you have any questions or topics that you would like us to discuss in a future episode. So, again, thank you for joining us. Have a fabulous day. And remember, it's always better Yahweh's way. Thank you for listening to this episode of Yahweh's Money. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the crossroads of religion and money. If you have any questions or suggestions of topics you would like to hear us tackle, please email us at Yahweh at Crusaders4Change.org. Also, we would love to hear your feedback on today's episode, so please leave us a review and remember to subscribe to our podcast. To hear all of Yahweh's Money's latest episodes, please visit us at www.crusaders4change.org or wherever podcasts are found. God bless.